slow-mo in the highlight reel. We'll see whether we get it again as we get into pick and ban for game number 1. SANDBOX versus the Afreeca Freecs. Afreeca staring down the barrel of a 2-7, much like KT and Gen G. This is where they have to make the change.
And on the blue side, I'm interested to see what you ban from SANDBOX, because there's definitely champions I have underlined, 5-1 Thresh, most played, and very high win rate.
Yeah.
The Joker, for example, they still play Aatrox on 9.3. You don't really feel like you need to ban that, but it's something you have to remember. The LeBlanc ban actually going to be thrown out to Dove, one of his favorites, but not necessarily on the Rift so far. It's a couple of games on LCK Spring, and it's actually double ban on Joker, which is a very interesting approach, hoping to get Joker away from some of the comfort. You already said his mechanics aren't what we praise him for, but his playmaking is very good.
Yeah, but I feel like Joker does have a lot of different options. I mean, his Shen's also fantastic and something that has seen bans before. Tahm Kench was the final ban here, and Afreeca Freecs say, all right, we'll take the Ezreal. Last time we saw aiming on this champion, he looked pretty terrible.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
I don't want to beat around the bush.
That's
he
fair.
just looked crap.
Aiming has had real huge struggles in his last couple of matches. You remember all the Ashe arrows hitting him on Ballista.
Yeah. Thankfully, Ashe globally banned now, so we're totally fine. Just to give you guys the update here in game number 1, Ashe, sometimes her arrow is just invisible. So, she's not going to be played.
And remember the champion he had the struggles on? It was against Azota.
Yeah.
His Sivir timing on his spell shield was off, let's say, is the nicest way to put it.
And then the panic flash into just dead.
I don't think SANDBOX is too concerned with giving up Ezreal. There's a lot of champions that can take priority against Ezreal.
Whoa.
Could be something shenanigans like a J spot lane. Could be a Draven that we know that Ghost loves to visit, not so much recently. If you're Afreeca, one interesting approach you could take is getting Joker to blind pick a support and then actually putting Jelly on something lane dominant, finding a way to actually pressure Joker, because you don't want to allow him to, you don't want to just take a tank support, let's say if Tahm Kench wasn't bad, Tahm Kench, and then give Joker a free Shen lane. You don't want that.
Yeah.
You want to actually make him accountable where possible. Right now, Afreeca got some pretty strong pick tools with the Jarvan and the Lissandra. A first round Shen is actually what you want when you ban away 2 champions from Joker, because Shen definitely not known as for his laning phase, and I don't know if SANDBOX will feel like they have to find coverage bans for the Shen.
Exactly. Well, he has lost once on the Shen so far, but out of 3 games, that ain't too bad. And SANDBOX pretty good at getting through the laning phase and then using him as a battle tool in their split push play that they do around the map. And with Tahm Kench banned, they banned it themselves. He is the only other option, really, for facilitating that sort of play from the support position.
But if I'm a coach of any team playing SANDBOX the next couple of weeks, I look at this draft so far and I'm like, oh, I need to know how this game goes. And the reason why I say that is you take away the ultra comfort of Galio and Thresh, and SANDBOX a first rounding support Shen, a champion that straight up sucks in the 2v2. So when you see that, you're like, is this finally the way that we attack SANDBOX? Is this something that will work? It's a very interesting learning tool when this game is over. The hindsight is going to be very valuable. Zooming in on the bans in the second round, Urgot actually made it through the first round and won't be allowed to be a very safe blind pick top lane on the side of Afreeca. Sivir ban is going to head towards Ghost. He still has something like the Kalista if he wants to go for an 80 carry, the Draven, the Victor, these are all open. Very interesting
Vladimir
to see how he
available.
approaches it. And like you say, the Vladimir for the Vladimir Shen, let's show up later in the game, is available as well.
Yeah, he hasn't actually played Vladimir so far this game, but this could be the debut as our SANDBOX immediately lock that one away. Was sort of looming, and certainly a lot of flex potential here on the side of SANDBOX. We can see 3 carries here, but we don't quite know where they're all going.
Now, it's Vladimir Shen, most likely as a duo. Of course, Shen can flex, but it's a support so far, effectively, in 2019.
Yeah.
And it's also Ghost's Vlad. And you noted that it's his first time playing it this season. Let me tell you a story about Ghost Vlad. Is maybe we'll have a lane Sejuani or Jarvan in this game.
Spirit, did you name change to Dread? What is happening here?
I'm guessing this might be a lane Sejuani.
I hope so. That'd be fun.
Lane Sejuani happened, of course, in the EU LCS, or LEC, I should say, a couple of times, and Caps played it in mid, and in the actual LEC, it was top lane pick for Wonder, so we'll get more information about that in a bit. One thing I want to bring up, do you remember Ghost's BBQ Oliver's bot lane Vladimir? Because he was the worst Vlad we had in the league. He was abysmal on the Vladimir.
By far.
By far the worst. So we're going to see if he's actually wrapped his head around it. The other awesome dudes, the Victor, for example, very impressive. But because this is a weak laning 2v2, how will Ghost look on what was before a black mark in his champion pool.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you can see, the team compositions have come together, and it's SANDBOX wanting to shove themselves as fast and loose towards the Afreeca Freecs as they can possibly go. And Afreeca Freecs with a very standard composition at the moment. It's Dread in the jungle, but that could change. Not anymore. 19 seconds. So the Piggy Lady will be in the jungle, and Jarvan is the one meeting the Jace on the top side of the map. So an interesting matchup here for Keen into Summit.
But the epitome of a snowball matchup, because obviously early you're taking a couple of Q trades from range and dealing with a melee versus range matchup. If you get those first couple of kills and buy some AD, the amount you can dunk solo in the 1v1, but even more importantly, remember you have the melee auto attack synergy with the Sejuani passive.
Yeah.
You just rack up kills, and Jace finds it very hard to enter lane. However, that's with finding a lead. Without the snowball, obviously the lane is range versus melee, so let's see how much attention Keen needs to stabilize a matchup against an opponent he would know oh so well. Remember, Afreeca were the kings of in-house scrims, so these guys have probably played each other hundreds of times.
Yeah, if not more than that, Papa. I'm glad you bring that one up, but we have to admit that we've been watching Summit play Jace, and he hasn't looked like he's had any trouble in any melee matchup that he's ever been in on this pickup. So Keen's certainly throwing the gauntlets. Let's see whether it lands right now. SANDBOX fans in full voice as we enter the Rift for game number 1. Joker thinking about a bit of a face check. Not sure whether that was a visual bug, him stepping out there as the entirety of the Afreeca Freecs, minus aiming, are going to walk over a ward.
What a Bazinga ward that is. That ward is getting ultra value in this game. This is the sort of game you definitely want a full invade as Afreeca, because both solo lanes here are heavily advantaged SANDBOX.
Yeah.
Zoe is a lane counter to Lissandra. Always doesn't necessarily manifest at level 1 or anything like that, but a very good matchup for the Zoe. And Jace versus Jarvan, something we've already explained. Bot lane, very fine for Afreeca, but not necessarily going to have too much priority outside, say, level 2-3, where Ezreal and Braum can do a lot of work. Vladimir and Shen will take a long time to get going, but the top side here and just finding a way to get some gold on your champions, get your first item rolling, is so desperately wanted by Afreeca that fishing for an invade was one way to just warp the game state, get some flashes, and find advantages through that.
Yeah, and you can see Keen, interesting choice here, has gone for Summon Airy to get those spear poke shots as they've mirrored their builds here. Oh, there we go. Summon Airy comes down.
That's some lane presence. Spirit approved.
Exactly.
Throw out the flag. Is he going to max flag first on the top side? Ooh. That'd be one way to approach it.
I can't wait for him to come back with an amp tome. His first item. That's the dream.
After the first series, if that happens, I'm not sure if I'll be okay. Please check on me, Twitch chat, and check on me too, Atlas.
Yeah, I will. I'll do my very best. I've already had a caster walk out on me so far this season. I don't want it to happen again.
It's not you, it's them.
I hope so. It's starting to feel like an ominous trend, though. Alright, but Summit keeps getting bopped by these flags, and I'm starting to believe more and more that the old APJ
on the upside,
could work.
Remember, usually you have to start a step forward in Q, and Jace will sidestep X% of the Q trades. If you are going for E, there is very little animation to juke, so there is some validity to it. Like, maybe you go the support route. If you guys know, like, Karma support, it'd be Q 3 points into max E. Maybe you go E 3 points into max Q.
Yeah, sort of like the Lucian thinking as well, you know. Free nerf, of course, on 9.4. Ardent Blaze going to cost a little bit more and do a little bit less, but at the moment, like, on 9.3 right now, certainly has been a tool where you put a few extra points in it.
You rush Arden Sensor and team fight as Jarvan, giving Arden Sensor to your team.
Oh, to Dread on the Sejuani carry.
Think of how fast the passive is brought.
Oh my goodness. Bristle will be so incredibly amped up.
Spirit will be amped up too, as that's not good.
Yeah, King gonna get booped back here as Dread has to come in just to protect his silly commando Jarvan.
Oh man. Ships in the night on the chase there.
Oh my god. Yeah.
That's not the start you wanted as a Afreeca Freecs.
No, that's a whoopsie. That's a whoopsie. As a I'm glad he doesn't have one of those weird back animations because of that skin being so incredibly old, because it could have been just even more sad if he's trying to look cool after not looking very cool.
The only way that could have been worse if one of them drifted into turret range and had to flash.
Oh god.
Didn't happen. Bot lane priority, like we mentioned, going to be there, so that's something you can plug and play Vlad and Shen is the lane that I've had the most nasty words for.
Yes, it is not exactly... It's a lane that I feel loses gracefully, but it definitely loses every single time.
It's hard to kill it with fire, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But apart from that...
Unless you're deaf and your opponent's cheating.
Shen, as long as he taunts out, you hold on to the pull. It gets way better. Vladimir, of course, we know, is the looming terror of the late game.
Yeah.
But that is a much later thing, and you feel so good if you close your eyes, wake up and it's 20 minutes in, and Shen's ready to teleport to a 1-3-1 side laner, and Vlad is just wave clearing a mid. It's the before part that is the part you tend to forget. It's kind of like when you have an epic pop-off game as AD carry and then walk into lane the same champion, like, I'm slow, and I attack real slow, and this is what happens in the early game, unfortunately.
That's why I like swapping champions after every single game, otherwise I just get depressed and I keep cancelling my autos. Because
good way to stay in wood tier elo as well.
I know, right? Never just main one champion is my motto.
LS disapproved.
Yeah, I just don't like winning, Papa Smithy. It's not my plan. Gino fan for life. Aiming and Jelly. Gonna continue pushing this one forward, but at the moment you can see that Ghost and Joker are not really getting too threatened here. CS gap by about 20 at around when the laning phase ending is a decent one. Is okay, Joker dives on forward, gets a lot of value out of the Spirit's Refuge. As Ghost was maybe slightly on a different page, but his time to get some free farming in is definitely time not wasted.
Spirit's Refuge is of lesser value in Ezreal Braum lane because the Q, of course, not going to be dodged by Spirit's Refuge, and you can start the Braum passive at least with the Q of his own. So, yeah, the fact that you can do that negates some of what is sometimes huge value.
Especially against Braum.
Yeah, exactly. The Braum.
All right, there's the flash in. Aiming has been ignited as Ghost doesn't want to blow his flash here. Joker. Oh, man, he might be the oldest member of the team, but he's certainly not the one that doesn't want to pull the trigger, you know? It's not the level head here for Joker.
And you understand the timing. It's because he has a River Ward that sees that the support has left and is clearly going to be helping with getting the Braum passive and thus picking up the Rift Scuttler faster. But that was a timing where something could happen. Unfortunately, his lane partner is Vladimir, so there's no way for Vlad to do anything. The minion wave is in the wrong spot, and it just ends up being a donation of both summoners and not even forcing aiming out of lane.
Well, Ghost's trade was to catch up in farm, which, in a Shen Vladimir lane, lose gracefully, that ain't bad. You know, you got to use Vladimir and Shen laning terminology when it comes to describing whether or not we're winning or losing.
This reminds me of solo queue where you feel like you could hit that epic taunt flash and you nail the mechanics.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are no allies near you. No one else can get over the terrain that you were able to.
Yeah.
You're right. He actually impressed us mechanically, but that wasn't the spot to do so.
No, it certainly wasn't. It's like when the Jarvan, flag drag cataclysms. He's like, I got him! And then he's dead.
But he didn't have flash. Why didn't you get in there?
Where are you guys? And they're like, not even on the screen. Beautiful. So I'm glad that Hecarim's out of the meta for that reason, although he's still certainly in solo queue at the moment.
He got buffed too, so actually I think his solo queue win rate could be pretty insane.
Yeah.
On patch 9.4.
Not in my Woody Elo like we've been referring to.
I think SANDBOX have pretty supreme siege, which is two champions to discuss. The Zoe and the Jace are siege enders of repute. Side lane wise though, we already mentioned that the Jarvan versus Jace might actually force it to be a siege game with the Jace rather than a side lane Jace game, and even Summoner being down on Jace will be pretty consequential. Scaling-wise, 5v5 is so weird to talk about because SANDBOX don't really 5v5. Vlad's a 5v5 only champion, but he might end up being a side lane champion and trying to push a lead.
He can also do that, though.
Exactly.
You know, he can put a Vladimir in sort of a Nasus or a Lowy situation where he makes a whole bunch of people come to him, and then you can take things elsewhere on the map, and that does fit SANDBOX's style just in general as a team.
Isn't it weird to consider we might have Vlad 4-1ing as the notable, as the AD carry player, and then sieging with everyone else?
Very strange. Very, very strange. Is also gone to finish off the Proto Belt for a one-item spike instead of getting the Fiendish Codex or anything like that early on as Dread looking for Joker, but we'll be able to just taunt his way over the wall.
Dread should definitely have ulted. Remember, Joker has no summoners, so that was a free chance to at least try something, and ends up just holding on to the ultimate there. Unsure why he was so defensive in that scenario. I think Afreeca's snuck in here.
Not sure how he managed to do that. It looked like he did it right under the nose of the Afreeca Freecs, but feels like he has actually made it forward as Joker Oh, baiting, what do you reckon? There's the Arcane Shift, and on Fleek, he's biding his time. He made it to level 6. There's the flash. Immediately out from aiming. He will have that E-back off cooldown relatively quickly, but the knock-up's not good enough there for On Fleek, and hasn't popped the ultimate, thankfully, so they will have an opportunity to utilize that further down the track.
Definitely was able to sneak in. That part was confirmed, but just like with the Shen Taunt Flash, no follow-up available for the duo lane with the lane spacing. It's all happening around a duo lane that's pretty content to farm, but despite there being quite a lot of action bot side, hasn't stemmed the bleeding to a noticeable degree.
No, not happening just yet. You can see Keen, he's built his Ninja Tabi, hasn't been able to complete something like a Tiamat just yet, which you could imagine is going to be coming in relatively quickly in this build. We'll see where his build does decide to go. I like more AD, but
I think
you can see that you can go tank.
But you have to go full damage because you have so much threat onto Zoe and Jace that
Yeah.
I think it's almost incorrect to go for any tanky builds. And you can go 2-item spike, something like a Black Cleaver. There's a lot of different ways you can approach the damage. Like you say, Tiamat, Hydra of some description is usually the start of a Jarvan build.
Yeah, where he goes. Aside from that, Black Cleaver is something that would make a lot of sense, but I don't really know what the Jarvans on the top side of the map have been building as of late. I know I personally go Lethality, but it's probably not a great move.
Okay against Jace, but I think you want to go something that straddles the line a little bit more in terms of impact against other champions. Been a slow game. No neutrals taken. Rift Herald not even scouted at this point. Not often it's 10 minutes 30 and there's no ward of any description on Rift Herald.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like these two teams are wondering how the heck it made it to 10 minutes because nothing's actually happened just yet. And SANDBOX are a team that have generally been through at least 5 kills on both sides of the Rift so far in a game like this.
And we should note, given it being Vladimir Shen, Wake Me Up when 20 minutes ends, does seem to favor SANDBOX. They will have that mid-game window where they can actually get a fight, or if they can extend the lead around the Jace, or build a lead there. There are a lot of tricky things they can do in the non-interactive Vladimir laning phase.
Yeah, Jelly gonna have the Winter Bite on cooldown as Dread dives on forward now. Still hasn't thrown out the ultimate, but Jelly, he's gonna throw out his. Joker will be falling. A lot of CC going down though. Hemoplay getting some value from Joker to the Infernal Chains. Pull back, Jelly, they're not ready for it. As Ucal down here on the bottom side will claw his way. Oh! Summit predicts it! And SANDBOX even the trade.
Had the prediction there from Summit. Nicely done against his old squad. Down goes Ucal, not an old teammate, but someone he likes to add to the kills. A lot of action bot side. Seemed like Joker will give up his life up for nothing. They do exit with a kill.
Yeah, Joker actually had his flash available, but his priority was trying to taunt up as many people as possible, and thankfully for SANDBOX, they're able to take down Ucal. And if that's not the most SANDBOX thing you've ever seen, I don't know what is. The support saying, well, I could get out, but nah, I'm going further in. I don't care if I die, even if it's first blood, if we can get anything back for it.
Honestly, if you're flashing out there, you're going to die anyway, so save it for a taunt flash, thinks Joker, and it ends up being a smart call. He's back in the lane. Still has his ultimate available. Laning phase extends. Really nice little moment there for Summit. Justifies the teleport.
Yeah, very nicely done. Let's have a look at it again.
And watch the replay through all of this. Remember, it's SANDBOX fighting before they like to. They want another 10 minutes of farming around this duo lane. Joker's super low, but gets a 3-man taunt that extends this fight longer. There is no decision to teleport for Keen. He's on a back timing as far as we can tell. Goes over the wall. Ucal doesn't take the max range of the E either. It's not about a fixed distance like a portal jump usually is.
Yeah, he just wanted to get the heck out of there, right?
And it gets punished by the EQ from Summit.
Really nicely done there from SANDBOX, but as the dust settles, it will be a slight advantage over to the Afreeca Freecs, and that kill going on to Dread will accelerate this Sejuani just a little bit, and keeping him in relevance against On Fleek will be important. Sejuani, of course, going to be able to farm out very, very quickly, and we can see Keen already does have that Tiamat built up. Where he goes next is the question mark, but because Summit left lane, the Jarvan's feeling a little bit better here, despite the fact that the one kill did go over to Summit.
But this is a very good macro decision because they're starting the Rift Herald top side, even though, because Summit doesn't have teleport, they know they can't respond to an Ocean Drake play.
Yeah.
But you just go around Summit, have the Shen ultimate, whether he's there in melee range or not, and make a play. Now, Ghost has walked up pretty damn far.
Yeah, it's a very early pull there as well, as Ghost has to flash to get out of the way. Hemoplay does go down. There's the Stand United. The Shen's going to turn up, but that may have just delivered a kill over to the Afreeca Freecs. Aiming is going to grab his first of the game. And Joker gets out and he's like, what the heck were you doing, Ghost? You got yourself killed.
And that's one of those solo mistakes. As the macro lane assignment was right. Ghost walking up and saying, what's happening around this Drake? Was far too bold, Atlas. There was no need to walk around there. You're getting a Rift Herald pre-14 minutes on the top side. Joker doesn't die for it instantly. Still continues to sniff around. Kill goes the way of Afreeca needlessly by SANDBOX.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Ghost, quite a few mistakes there. Doesn't use Proto Belt, uses his pull way too early. Showing that we might be getting some of the notes of the old BBQ Ghost on the Vladimir that we saw in his awesome dude attempts last year.
And it wasn't necessarily about laning phase, it was finding it impossible to find multi-man hemoplagues even when the enemy was grouped up. It was a lot of skill threading issues where he wasn't being able to use his E at every opportune moment. So we're going to have to wait to be convinced by Ghost, because positioning-wise, that was a pretty big mistake. Now the maximum punishment is a 15-minute Ocean Drake, which is certainly not going to be the Drake you're looking for. A first spawn Ocean is great, but you want it 7 minutes in, not 15 minutes in.
Yeah, the laning phase is pretty much over at this point. But they will be able to grab it, cycle to the next one, which will be Ocean number 2. If only you could get to 11 Ocean Drakes. It's not a thing that you can do. I
think it's one that's pretty valuable for SANDBOX, because then when we see a 4-1 of some description, Jason Zoe would love to have at least one Ocean Drake, especially after the buff.
Oh, Yukal would like half of his health bar back again. He's not going to have it at this point in time. Barrier picked up from Dove. As he goes to take a turret shot, which is pretty perfect timing there, as the Rift Herald goes down in the mid lane, and Yukal, he's not exactly at a health position to actually make a play here.
Or an item breakpoint has a Revolver and Merc Treads, because he's trying to be respectful in a tricky lane. The poke starts, and while the Rift Herald doesn't get all the work done, just a little bit of standing turret HP in the mid lane left for Afreeca Freecs.
And also just a lot of resources needed to defend against that Rift Herald to stop that outer turret from going down. So aiming now by himself, Ghost and Joker are going to get the shove in. And the Vladimir is up to at least some better items with the Sorcerer's Shoes and the Fetish Codex, heading towards that 45% CDR that we know and love.
Farming out on Lissandra in a very tricky matchup really does remind us, though, of some of the Aurelion Sol play we saw from Fly yesterday. Picking up this roaming mid laner, which Yukal's been playing a lot, and a player with a lot of high expectation when he jumped onto Afreeca Freecs, a player who was so clearly hyped about joining a squad, famous for playing a lot of internal scrims and practicing a lot. Would have thought he would thrive in this scenario, but we know Yukal can be a weapon, Atlas, and they just haven't really found a way to weaponize him, because if you're just wave clearing in a bad matchup and building respectfully, it's not really improving the state of your team's early game.
The worry for me is that he was always a man like beyond his years, was Yukal. He was always someone that was known for keeping a level head no matter what, and he's just not playing like that this season whatsoever, as the Afreeca Freecs are looking to turn that one around. That's an instant kill on the Shen, and a very proactive play coming in. Yukal tanks the turret and everything's fine. The opposite of a caster curse, one could say.
Bit of a poor teleport, though. Teleport very needless. They had vision on the enemy duo. They're getting out-traded here by SANDBOX because they just put too many people bot.
Well, I mean, Ghost might even actually keep himself alive here. That was a good Sanguine pull. Dodges out of the ultimate. Still might not be enough, as the Winter Spider is going to tag him up. No pull available. There's the flashes forward. Stand United again. This time not going to deliver the Shen because the Vlad dies too fast.
Second kill there does negate some of the good movements, but I believe they were able to take both mid lane turrets. That's a really long mid lane now.
Yeah, the map is all of a sudden extremely open from the middle.
Afreeca Macro and Ghost Vladimir, both of them counting against them, both worthy of some scoring there. Some big mistakes on both sides. 2 kills for 2 turrets, and a turret trade means overall maybe a small improvement for Afreeca, but watch this play. Right now, what do they know? They know they have a teleport advantage, so we follow here. To the credit of Keen, there is no wards to show that Jace is not there for a counter gank, and Jace shows himself mid. They continue to move forward, so it's not we had full information and made a worse decision than possible, but in the end, it looked like they'd get away from this. Ghost ult is fine, but actually he just moves up for a Tides of Blood when he could have just disengaged and lived. Instead he dies. Jelly with 2 forms of CC, enough to get through a second Stand United, basically squandered on the Vladimir.
Yeah, now you've got a 1-0-3 Ezreal mirrored by his support, and this Sejuani is starting to get big. 100% kill contribution, and there's only one on the side of SANDBOX. 4-1 is feeling pretty good for the Afreeca Freecs, and they need any sort of feel-good situation on the scoreboard as possible after what has been a terrible first round robin thus far. If they can finish off with a win against the second place team, it's going to do wonders here for the Afreeca Freecs, moving in with, like you say, a whole bunch of new players the next split.
And Aiming is the one who is relatively the strongest person on the map. Look at his item breakpoint now. He's soon to have Muramana. He went Trinity Force, a more expensive choice. Even some Vampiric Scepter if he takes a bit of Zoe trading and wants to lifesteal up in the mid lane. We've seen Afreeca been surprisingly willing to go in to protect the Sivir comms or protect the Aiming comms where he's a one threat. And he needs to actually be able to vindicate that as Joker's too far up.
Yeah, he is. He's going to have to flash to get out of the way this one. Dove immediately cleanses Dread's ultimate, but they're going for Joker. There's a conga line to get rid of this Shen. And Afreeca Freecs will be able to take him down one more time.
And remember, Afreeca are fielding the roster with no Spirit, where mid-game shot calling has been their biggest problems. They traded down in terms of the turrets. Let's watch how they play out this game, but this is usually where a lack of smart macro play has hurt Afreeca's lineup as it's fielded today.
And it feels like it's happening right now. You can see Jace towards the bottom side, and Vladimir towards the top side. Towers fall in quick succession, but it's only one for our blue side. It's two for the red as... yeah, Ghost and Summit really taking a lot just for a death on the support.
4-2 in turrets, the evolving question mark here. And SANDBOX, when they eventually group around turrets, already have the Jace and Zoe to rain hell. So they're running Afreeca around the map. Afreeca just grouping too early, trying to force something in mid. When they don't have their lanes in the right spot to be so bold in one lane, just have Aiming, wave clear. Watch the mini-map here. It's actually more important than what's happening on the map. You're like, oh, Joker, what you doing, mate? You're too far up. But on the mini-map, Vlad's pushing in. There's no coverage for them there. Not even any wards. Blue wards on the top side. Jace pushing in bot side. All they can do after this is take a mid lane turret while they're just slammed across the map.
Exactly. And that bottom outer turret fell, and it's understandable that it did, given the fact that it's Ezreal Braum against a Vladimir Shen lane. Aiming goes back to base, is going to augment his build just a little bit with a QSS, but that is not moving into his next tier territory just yet, but he is very strong at this moment in time.
It's their latest attempt to wield Aiming as the ultimate MVP of their comp. Again, we talked about the Sivir comps. Now he's on Ezreal, who's hit his item spikes way ahead of the clock. It's just that Aiming has made so many critical game-losing errors that it's just undone what has been some good passage of play or some comps that could work. You have that asterisk of, can they make it work in this particular game? And we kind of have to be proven wrong because so far there have been those high-profile mistakes.
Yeah, there are situations where, you know, you've got the Kai'Sa picks up 3 kills, but it's Griffin, right? And you're expecting Viper to be able to always carry that one out. You know, Deft's Ezreal, if he gets any sort of lead, you have just a feeling in your bones that it's going to be a one game. Aiming on the Ezreal, I don't have that feeling at all right now. I have a feeling that SANDBOX are well and truly not out of it yet. QSS picked up for Joker here. He doesn't want to get caught anymore. 3 times is probably enough.
I think the reason you do that is that you see how this game is playing out, where Afreeca are trying to play one lane while SANDBOX plays 3, and you say, Joker just wants to look tasty and absorb some aggro while we run the enemy around the map. Speaking of running around the map, Afreeca continue this roaming death squad. The only way to make this game narrow is to start hitting the Baron and force SANDBOX to come to you, because right now, they're finding all their wins in the 1 of the 1-3-1, not in the 4 or 5.
Yeah. Actually able to completely take away the pressure that Afreeca Freecs had on the top side of the map. They were trying to get that wave in a decent position, but the rest of the waves are going to crash on forward for SANDBOX, and Afreeca don't have that opportunity to actually siege anything. I feel like this SANDBOX composition as far as anti-siege is working in a really unique way, where they've got enough pressure elsewhere on the map to avoid Afreeca Freecs ever being able to group up without just losing trades.
It's just real simple game fundamentals, right? It's being able to play the map, push your waves, things that have been relevant for so long. It's kind of mind-boggling that Afreeca Freecs, because of what we think of this team as being a very smart team in previous years, is now with a different roster showing that it is very important to have some of those cooks. You know, they don't have Kuro, they don't have Tucson, they don't have Spirit playing in game number 1, and that means that they're just trying to brute force while the enemy gets the cultural victory around the map.
Yeah, exactly. And that was my always favorite victory in Civilization. So I can understand it just doesn't work that well in League of Legends. Just not a thing. Aiming going to take an accelerated shot blast to the face, but like you were talking about before, Papa, he does have the Vampiric Scepter built up. Lost Chapter now there as well, so it will, of course, be the double tier build. Doesn't actually have his next tier just yet, but wanted to have some extra stats.
He's got power. He's going the power side of all the builds, and I see a lot of validity in that. Unfortunately, the enemy is just, you know, waving the white flag or asking for a bit of time. They're bunkering up, depending on what analogy you want.
Yeah.
And just waiting for a mistake, a macro mistake from Afreeca. And I think that's actually a very astute way to play against what we've seen from Afreeca in their first 8 best-of-3s. Now, you find the right fight, you get the punishment, and there's a lot of standing gold for Afreeca to just explode this game into a 6,000 gold lead. But until that happens, everything SANDBOX is doing is paying off just fine.
Yeah, and at the moment, Dove's clearing out minion waves, and Joker, he can assist any of the side lanes easy as you would like. So the Afreeca Freecs just out of a lot of answers here. You can see Keen moving up the bottom side of the map, but actually changes his mind. He heads top because he sees Ghost up there, and it's a lot of happy feet happening on the side of Afreeca Freecs.
They think about a piggyback gang, where both the teleport users go to the same lane, just kill the enemy side laner, but they remember that Shen is the kind of ace up the sleeve there. You know, that's the padding of the deck from the side of SANDBOX to make that much less reliable. You get really big value from Shen against Jarvan because apart from the EQR, everything else is going to be negated by the Spirit's Refuge. So they think better of that. They go back to the side lane, and that plays once again to the hands of SANDBOX.
Yeah, and I like that you use that as a reference because stacking the deck in your favor feels like exactly what SANDBOX have done. They've lost every skirmish so far this game. Every sort of display of mechanics in League of Legends that normally wins you games, especially in your solo queue matches, has gone towards the Afreeca Freecs, but SANDBOX are just winning by being at better positions on the map and taking everything that they possibly can better than the Afreeca Freecs.
And all these talented mechanical players on Afreeca, they've got at least 4 of them. And Jelly is a solo queue star of his own, as aiming does take a burst there. Saying, I could kill him, we should fight. They're saying all those things, and they know they're at great item spots, but that has to be frustrating because when it comes to stage play, no real wins to speak of. And when it comes to this game, they're just being ran around.
Yeah, well, it's a chance now for the Afreeca Freecs to fight for this Mountain Drake, but not with aiming in the mid lane, and Yukal waiting to throw out that claw. SANDBOX do find themselves relatively routed. Ultimate is going to land there onto OnFleek, but he has the World Ender. It'll take a while for them to kill him, and we'll see whether Dove can offer anything back in the meantime. Umbral Dash is up and available thanks to 9.3, and the Aatrox walks away.
They don't invest any flashes. They don't feel like they can close out the kill. And that means that it's just another bloodless fight where SANDBOX trades up. Another one to add to the cavalcade we've seen this game. The frustration, no doubt, is growing. And remember, we have a data point to refer to. We're sitting there halfway through, 30 minutes into game number 1 of the telecom war, saying maybe the experience advantage SKT has is going to manifest in a game-losing mistake. And then Zenit very much followed that up with a huge individual error. Any errors like that from Afreeca, and SANDBOX are poised to just swoop in and take a Baron and then drop Jace, Zoe plus Baron equals game ender push potentially.
The thing that I'm really confused about and also just fascinated about, Papa, is that that sentence even exists here in 2019. You see this matchup on paper without seeing the rest of the year, and Afreeca Freecs versus SANDBOX should be Afreeca with the experience, even if you know what the roster is. It's just absolutely insane that this team coming in from Challenger, the team that promotes second underneath Damwon Gaming, are now second place here in the LCK, and we're using sentences like SANDBOX is the team with all the experience and the level-headedness, as right now, Dread's been routed and he's most likely going to go down. Yeah, there we go. OnFleek just dives on top of him and dashes away.
3 million in mid lane are being run around the map by now the death squad of SANDBOX. Ghost's going to have to slowly mill away from this one. First pick actually goes the way of SANDBOX, and now they back towards Baron. So he throws out Paddle Stars, and how will Afreeca deal with this Baron start?
Yeah, Baron is going to get started here. SANDBOX of old rearing its head as Ghost in position for a flank, but he's going to get found out, but that just means more time is being bought here for SANDBOX on the Baron. They've got a Mountain Drake as Summit dives on forward, but Jace isn't exactly a frontliner. That's a nice double taunt coming in from Joker. That might be all it can offer, but in goes Ghost. The Hemo Blade gets a whole bunch of work done, and now Keen has to find his way out of this fight. There is no option, but SANDBOX are very low, and I don't think they can go back to the Baron very quickly, and nor will they be able to catch up to Keen.
Look like it'll be a disaster for Afreeca. It's not ideal, but it's a 2-for-1, and Baron stops. That's the most important thing. No Smite was there, as Dread is the one that went down. Will they be able to stop Jarvan's back? They cannot. Unfleek even approaches with the Qs. That was closer than we first appreciated. Watching this replay, it's a 4v4 for now because they know that Vlad was starting to go the most defensive way around. Looks like it could be bigger, but the E actually misses from Ghost on most after the flash. The R doesn't get maximum value. It could have been just a game ender, but it actually ends up being a decent defense of the Baron by Afreeca.
Yeah, and keeping aiming alive is the reason why they couldn't go back there, as aiming being alive may not be a thing that's true for too much longer, as Ghost clears out mini wave, but they're not able to get on top of the Ezreal as the Aatrox and the Vlad.
Aiming continues to push. He is still just the strongest person on the Rift, but Ghost is ready to change that narrative, and stacking happening on that second tier item. Ghost is level 15, as is aiming. They've had a lot of side lane time as everyone's going around.
Is also level 15. Still has a 2-level advantage over Dread.
You know why that is? It's because Afreeca spent so much time as a death squad that couldn't find any kills. Yeah. That actually, Summit and Unfleek are 2 levels ahead of their opponents, and Keen only now narrowing that to 1 level.
Precisely. So Summit very close to hitting that level cap. SANDBOX wanting to throw this power around before it becomes irrelevant. Level 18s will be hit relatively soon as Keen, trying to find an engagement, is going to dive straight on forward, but the baby cage, he's kicked out of his own cage. And now we've got the Stands United, and Keen is going to get taunted up. Spirit Refuge does a lot of work here as they dive the backline, but Afreeca Freecs don't find too much joy. Ghost is running on forward, Dove is poking from the backline, and you've got Shock Blast flying in. Onfleek even survives, and Ghost grabs the first kill. Look at the explosion of magic damage in the backline, and this time the Jarvan ain't going anywhere. It's a double kill for Dove, and they're just chasing down the Afreeca Freecs. That's a triple kill. Can we make it a quadra? The answer's no. But Dread cannot defend this Baron.
The moment you commit and don't get kills, Zoe and Jace can just rain down hell from range, and there's nothing you can do. No full disengage available for Afreeca. They stopped the Baron the first time. This time, they're losing multiple objectives.
Yeah, the inner turret is going to be picked up at the same time as the Baron. And what has SANDBOX been doing all day? They've been taking just the most objectives from any sort of advantage that they might have, even if it doesn't look like an advantage on paper. This has been a masterclass of map positioning and objective taking, and you can see already as well, the vision available from SANDBOX where they needed it was also great.
If the best use of a Sejuani's time is at 31 minutes trying to solo a Drake, you know things have gone real bad, Atlas. They know that this has started. The ping was on it already.
And I don't even know whether he can finish it. 2,000 health is not something he's going to be able to burst down, and he has to get out of the pit. Thanks for the leash, says SANDBOX.
Well, that was sad.
Insults meeting injury a lot today, Papa Smith.
That's a line we've said a couple of times, but could it be any more?
They're best friends at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't worry. It's like we don't even need to introduce them. It feels like, you know, that friend that you've introduced to your other friends like 600 times, and they've started to get really annoyed. Yeah, insult and injury are feeling like that right now.
Definitely the 8th first introduction was conducted today, and the eye rolls were had by many. SANDBOX now have Jace, Zoe, and a Baron, and that's real bad for Afreeca.
Yep. Not to mention a Vladimir, who's also at a pretty decent point at this stage, and after having a couple of decent team fights, Ghost is making me a believer in the Holy Ghost that the LCK commentators and fans have been calling in.
I think we need Spirit back in the lineup, but unsure if that's going to salvage anything for Afreeca. Looking to join the other world's representatives, marooned on 2 and 7.
Yeah.
They lose this series.
Only Jinna is below them. This will mean that my ladder that I want moving up the wins column is one step closer to the truth. This Humble Life is the next one that has to do something here, as Yukal taking a lot of damage on the top side. Infernal Chains means he's just dead. Not a chance to use anything there. The ultimate even on cooldown, not sure where he used it. As Ghost, oh my god, the amount of health! He was just yo-yoing. His on-fleek is gonna go golden. Doesn't actually pop the GA. Has used the ultimate already as Ghost dives forward. See you aiming. You are not doing anything, my friend, as he gets onto the fountain, but I don't think that's far enough away from a SANDBOX Gaming, who were 1 and 4 for the majority of this game. The slowest early game we've seen from this team, and methodically crush Afreeca Freecs under their boot.
These are words that are very good summations of a game that, like you say, preseason and the reality, oh so different. Running around Afreeca Freecs, trying to unleash a death squad that was just no one ever home for the side of SANDBOX. They kill Ghost a couple of times. They try to pick the Shen, but the moment Shen got a QSS, he could actually just be that tasty bait. No one home for the actual punishment. And every time they try to run this roster that Afreeca clearly think is the way forward, they are completely battered around and understand that there's so much work to be done to actually make it stage ready for the LCK.
And I think it's worse than what we were talking about, because we're talking about this Afreeca Freecs squad finding an early game that actually works, but not necessarily having it together in the late game. They also don't have it together in the draft. And I mean, it feels like we're at the end of 2018 Afreeca when it comes to drafting, because what is this Sejuani even doing here? Like, why is she in the hands of Dread when we know Dread is a great carry player?
The draft is not outright a huge problem. It clearly can be wielded in some ways. There were win conditions for this team, but the team couldn't play to those win conditions. And that to me is even more worrying, is they drafted some cool champs and then tried a death squad and tried it again, and maybe the fifth death squad is going to work. Like, how many times do they have to be run around the map to understand that you need to start something and make the enemy come to you? They never made that decision, and you see the gesticulation from the coach. Lots of rotations being just signified there, and I think that's what happened here. They ran around the enemy, and that was the best way to play this team comp, because at worst, they run around the enemy while they're trying to kill people, and Vladimir farms to be able to match Ezreal later. At best, you get all these free objectives, and you have the gold ahead of schedule.
Yep, exactly right. And you can see, just nonchalant, just chilling back there. Summit especially is just so incredibly calm. Ready to go into the next one, and you thought that maybe there'd be some nerves there up against Keen, a man that he played behind for a very long time. Just not the case. Not a thing. And that 1v1 was about as irrelevant as a 1v1 can possibly be, because the Jace just avoided him, and they won the game in the siege.
Really felt like that was... You know when you play those sports management games where you don't get to play the actual sport, it's all about like selling the tickets, football manager to a lot of people at home. It felt like that, because the actual bloodiness of this game couldn't have been more irrelevant. Much more happened on the mini-map than happened on the main screen. Almost felt like we were observing the wrong things. Maybe in those games you just flip it around, have full screen minimap, and picture-in-picture for the actual game.
And it's so strange as well, because SANDBOX, that's not their playstyle, but they played this completely opposite playstyle.
You know what their playstyle is, Atlas?
Perfectly.
Their playstyle's playing good.
Their playstyle
I wish Afreeca could also consider this playstyle.
Right, this is what CV Max was talking about when he said, we're trying to shape the new LCK. SANDBOX have finally caught on, because Griffin have also demonstrated that the way to win League of Legends is to play good League of Legends.
R/Korean advice, more Korean teams should take note.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh my goodness, guys. Well, this was definitely a SANDBOX victory for the history books. We'll see whether they can do it again in game number 2 against the Afreeca Freecs, because what their subs are going to be, things like that, are answers that we're going to need after this comes back, because I don't think this particular iteration of the Afreeca Freecs is going to do too much winning here against this SANDBOX game.
They can't do the big hatchet job yet. They don't have access to Soul and the other members they're adding for the second round robin. It's the end of the first round robin. Is 23,700 irrelevant damage put out by the Ezreal. He had the items. You understood. They just were like, we have an MVP, let's use him. But again, the power when it's not wielded right, you know, I'm not a Lord of the Rings buff, but I'm sure there's some analogies that can be made here. They had this overwhelming power, and yet nothing ever happened around the Ezreal because they were being run around the map, left, right, and center.
Yeah, exactly. He was just avoided, and yes, he landed a whole bunch of Mystic shots, but that sort of damage number doesn't actually mean anything when it's not actually grabbing kills, or it's just killing Joker a few times in the early game. And I want to go back to what we were talking about before. Losing elegantly as the Shen Vladimir is something that SANDBOX have demonstrated they are well and truly capable of as well.
SANDBOX Gaming, way better than expected, I think, is what I would write as the tagline for this team. And let's see what they back it up with in game number 2.
Exactly. Thankfully, it's a best-of-3 series, so SANDBOX get another opportunity to wow us with their skills. We'll see whether they can against the Afreeca Freecs just after the break.